writing kind of lives on the air, and like hearing any author bring their work to life is special, and it sort of changes your relationship to it. A little bit how you hear it, like you hear it in your head, and now you hear it in their voice, and you kind of have these two different experiences that exist simultaneously when you return to the work after that. And I love that, and I know there are other people who do, and we're just so grateful for their time after a long day of teaching and putting together these awesome workshops. I've been in every one, so I know they've all been terrifically fantastic. So let's get to the faculty reading. I'm going to stop talking, and I have the great pleasure to introduce our first reader, Chuy Renteria, who is an author, a dancer, an artist, a storyteller, and a teacher, born in Iowa City and raised in the town of West Liberty, Iowa. A central figure in the local hip hop scene. Chuy completed her BA in dance from the University of Iowa, first generation student.
黒崎さん、
Chewy is
こ
currently
れ
on staff
プレイメイトランドの
at
模型とそっくりじゃ
Video
ない
all the way up in West Liberty,
そう
Iowa.
か、社長の部屋で見たんだっけ。
Writer's House and College. The first collection of rhyme stories to apply culture. Chewy's first publication press. We heard it when we were young. It's a memoir about growing up in West Liberty, Iowa. First introduced to Spanish town. Chewy's performance background is advocating for special needs. They worked as public coordinator, connecting artists with the community in civically engaged ways. Chewy's currently on staff Diversity's Resources Assistant Director, helping continue their work of advocating for arts and community through the lens of diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's my great pleasure to welcome Chuy Renteria. Chuy.
Hello, everyone. So there's a situation going on here where there's like sounds like okay, there you go. There's like a movie streaming to our headphones. Like Japanese dialogue was over Ryan. So can I get a thumbs up from my tech people that they can hear me out there in real life world? Sarah, can they hear me? Can anybody hear me? Latanya, can you hear me? I'm just gonna go off, and if people can hear me, they can hear me, and if not, then I'm gonna be doing my best to speak to the ether. So this is an excerpt from my memoir. It seems very apropos for today, and I'll just leave it at that. All right. Sorry, there's that dialogue still going, so I'm like trying to gather my bearings and it's tough. I'm gonna go deaf. I walked into world cultures class that day to find my sister and other girls and desks at the front of class. The school bell chimed, signaling for us to take our seats. Our teacher, Mr. Carter, walked up in front of my sister and the other girls. He commanded our attention without a word. I was smart enough to figure it out before he opened his mouth. My face grew hot with embarrassment, my stomach queasy. He began, "Everyone, as you can no doubt gather, we have something a little different planned for you today. We are joined by these young ladies, your fellow classmates, all of them seniors, all of them young mothers. Now, before we go on, we have to acknowledge something in this room." Mr. Carter looked over at me. The feeling in my stomach grew. I hated this attention, this embarrassment. We have to acknowledge that it's a little strange that we have one of these ladies' younger brothers in attendance. Chuy, I imagine this might be a little awkward. Is this all right with you guys? I nodded that it was okay. It felt like things were being done for me, like I wasn't in control of my own actions. I was a spectator of the scene before myself. Mr. Carter looked at Nancy. That's the first time I really noticed how shy and small my sister looked up there. She squeaked out a response. "It's okay with me. It's good he's here." Seeing my sister in front of the class was further proof of something I've said earlier. Ask 1,000 different people their story of our hometown, West Liberty, and you'll get 1,000 different responses. This is true of how people recollect other people as well. We were vastly different things to different people. Would you believe that if you asked Nancy's high school teachers, they'd say she was the shyest person they knew. One of the nicknames her friends kicked around before they landed on Flaca was Shy Girl. I always scoffed at this name. She was never shy around me, I could tell you that much. It threw me off guard. Everything about how she behaved toward me was out of sync with that shyness. Her abuse toward me as a child, her larger than life nature while mentoring me, her stubbornness and pushing against my family. My sister, for all the good and bad we put each other through, is a character deserving of a place in great literature. She is complex and fierce and the kind of person I aspire to be. When I'm at my lowest, when I'm afraid, I turn to her attitude towards life for guidance. That was all gone in that classroom. When the girls were in a fishbowl for us to gawk at, she looked small and unsure then, like she was waiting for someone to tell her what to do. That feeling in my stomach turned into a knot as Mr. Carter began leading the girls through questions. The gist of the discussion was something like a cautionary tale. It wasn't completely that. It'd be a disservice to Mr. Carter to describe it that way, but he was playing devil's advocate. And part of that advocacy was putting these girls front and center so we could learn something from them, from their stories, the why and the how, the ways we could prevent this from happening to us as freshmen. So you didn't use protection? Mr. Carter reiterated after another girl brought it up. I could feel myself sweating in my armpits. I was feeling queasy, like when I drink hot tea on an empty stomach. What kind of question was that? The girls answered solemnly, one by one. No, I did. I don't know if the condom broke or it was Nancy. She trailed off, lost in thought. This was weird, really fucking weird to be hearing about things this way. It felt like I shouldn't be there, that none of us should be there. This wasn't fair. It wasn't our story to hear, not in this way. My sister's broken and stilted answers fueled this feeling. There was something this discussion was getting at that was eating at my insides, something I couldn't articulate until well into my adulthood. I remember that feeling of helplessness, of feeling something for my sister. I recognize it now. For that brief moment in class, I felt something for my sister that I've never felt before or since. I felt sorry for her. That was it, the rub. She was a pawn in this cautionary tale. She was a statistic. Give me pissed off Nancy. Give me Nancy fighting tooth and nail to get what's hers. Give me my sister who doesn't wince when inking herself with tattoos and who calls me out for how stupid mine are. Don't give me a statistic cowering in a hard plastic school chair. Nancy struggled to articulate herself against another one of Mr. Carter's questions. One of her friends prodded her, trying to lighten the mood and open her up. Come on, shy girl. Es todo, flaca. Nancy wasn't able to find her footing and answer. The silence hung in the room before Mr. Carter switched gears. I thanked the Lord when I saw that time was running out for our class. I could feel I had sweated through my shirt. The fabric stuck to my back as I adjusted. So we're almost out of time. I wanted to give you ladies one last thing to say before we're out of here, because we have lots of kids here who are going to be in similar situations. They'll face things that you all have faced, and I want to know what you have to say to them. Some of my peers scooched their chairs, which sounded like thunder in the silence of the room. The girls didn't know exactly how to tackle Mr. Carter's open-ended question. What I'm asking is, do you have any regrets? Nancy? He started with her because he thought it'd be the easiest answer. I'm projecting, but how could he not have thought so? Everything about my sister's demeanor screamed regret, the way she held herself and couldn't find her footing. I wanted this to be over, to get up and out of that classroom. No, my sister said. Mr. Carter's glasses tinted in the fluorescent light as he cocked his head to the side. None at all? After everything you've been through, from everything we've gathered so far, it seems like things are tough for all of you. Yeah, it's tough. So? Nancy said. I looked at the girls around her who were shuffling in their seats like I had been before. One of the girls, Nancy's friend, the one who told her, "Come on, shy girl," was smiling. Nancy continued as she talked something in her changed. She was doing that thing where your own words fuel your confidence. The words cascaded as she went. I don't regret nothing. I never will. Yeah, it's tough. So what? So am I. I'm tough. Everyone here can judge me, can think all sorts of things about me and what happened to me, but I don't regret shit. Nancy continued as Mr. Carter tried to take the floor. You want to know something about me? I'm one of the most stubborn people you ever meet, and I won't regret nothing because I know that will make you people happy. I know bitches want me to fail, so no, I won't regret anything. Not my son, not my choices, not ever. Ain't that right, little brother? Nancy's friends laughed when she finished her mini speech. It felt like the whole class turned to look at me. If this had been the beginning of the class, their stares would have mortified me, but the feeling in my stomach was gone. The checking of the ticking clock subsided. Before I could say anything, Mr. Carter diverted the conversation. He wanted to wrap up things on a different point. He asked another question to the girl next to Nancy. I didn't see anyone else then, only my sister. She looked at me and I at her, and there it was, an ever so slight nod at her little brother. The bell rang and everyone got up at once to return to their lives, to talk loudly and to tell stories, to already forget about this lesson and the string of lessons thrown at us in high school. But before the buzz signaled to the class to get up, I saw my sister and I nodded back. That's what I got. Thank you. Hopefully y'all heard that. I'll go back to our regularly scheduled foreign language dialogue. If it's still there. Oh no, it's gone. Okay.
Okay, so I think that I'm supposed to be next, and I didn't know if I was waiting for someone to introduce me. I'm Gina Franco, and I'm teaching the poetry workshop this year. And I'm going to read you just 4 poems from my book, second book, The Accidental. Probably looks backwards to you, but it says The Accidental. And the first poem I'm going to read is called The Line. And it's a poem that is thinking about the lynchings of Mexican and Mexican American people on the border. And it's also a poem that takes the opportunity to think about how the border is a kind of mirror. And so you'll see that there's a moment when the poem writes itself into some lines that also then reverse themselves. Okay, so I'm just trying to help you listen for that. Thanks. The line. There is background noise again. Can you hear me? Can you all hear me? Okay, I'm gonna try. Okay, the line. So now we are equals, ¿verdad? All along eyeing the same banks, as though we might surface on the same shore, bare backs to the sun, wet shirts in hand, boots aside, those two. You keep saying el otro lado, the other side. See you there, face to face, no worries. The last good lynching was long ago. Ropes, belts, canteens sway in the tree. The tree sings with lightness. In time, the fruit shrank in the heat, grinned wide from the bone, dropped to the dirt, rot. The earth words hard. This now, a knot, a fishing spot. The sweet blood smell of the hook right through, the impaled form right through, either soft end writhing on the line. Beneath the surface, neither vertebral nor articulate, it sways underwater. Guts in skin, it sways from the other side. Verdad. Not a lure, but a rumor, a mirror of a parallel end. We'd fish the shallows with stripped willows with a hellgrammite drifting in the current, and that's where we trapped our leviathan. Iridescent scales that slid away from our hands where we crossed the swinging bridge and found effigy and sign, death to scabs crossing the line. A volleyball head and a pair of shovels for limbs. The hanging white sheet, the slashed body of many. The hanging white sheet, the slashed body of many. A volleyball head and a pair of shovels for limbs. Effigy and sign, death to scabs crossing the line. Where we crossed the swinging bridge and found iridescent scales that slid away from our hands, and that's where we trapped our leviathan. With a hellgrammite drifting in the current, we fished the shallows with stripped willows. Y verdad, the cities on either side of the river watch one another from the eyes of their televisions. Their headlines race beneath glass. They have taken my father's body, and I do not know where they have laid him. Love as the sinker, the line sinking deep. The last time I saw my father was in a dream, seated on every side of the table of ancestors and belonging so fully, he ceased to exist. They arrived on the other side, at the tree, at the end of this world, and the tree drank deeply. Love as a secret, unbearable map. Tell me, verdad, where you have laid the body. And I will bear him away. I will bear him away. I will bear him away. I've chosen to read mother and father poems tonight. The entire book is really made up of mother and father poems, but it seems especially relevant tonight, given the news today. And so that last poem was a father poem in my own mind, in the sense that I feel as though there's a mystery in my own childhood about how my own identity comes into a reality, given the complexity of my background. My parents are both Mexican American. They're both generations removed from the people who crossed the border. I am a fourth generation Mexican American. But they both also stayed very close to the border and very close to their hometowns. My father lived his entire life in his hometown, and that's where I grew up in Arizona, Morenci, Arizona. It's a copper mining town. And my mother also stayed in the border town of Del Rio, Texas, where she was born and raised. And so nearly all of the poems in this book are about these home bases somehow that have remained true for my family in both Arizona and Texas. Okay, so this is a poem about my grandmother who died in a flood in Del Rio, Texas, on the border, where my mother's family has lived for generations, and where my mother still lives. And the poem is called "Our Mother of Rivers is Made Our Perpetual Hanging Garden." Our Mother of Rivers is made our perpetual hanging garden. The waters fell, the waters rose, and the eating places and the sleeping places of the city were carried into the streets, where the rivers were singing as the living places gave way. There was the horizon, steeped in abjection and aching for nightfall, which felt like closure, inconceivable but necessary. There was the tree in the bend of the road, where, having followed the body's path to understand for myself, I watched the sun fade from the remains of the limbs. There, the limbs had caught the body up and held it fast against the flood. There, the wind tossed old leaves aside, exposing where the ash of the tree had split and wept. There was the milk rising into scars. Whatever was naked was unbearably naked, lanced clean through in the blink of an eye. And here was the eye. Lanced clean through, and here was the eye, suspending what it saw in what it still sees, where there was nothing left to see. From where I stood, it was plain I must let my answer be either yes or no, though I had only half a mind to answer. The other half was hung up on an oath taking hold, a little longer, a bit more, with the windfalls at my feet and the sky emptying out before me. Would that I could bring the body down beneath the slow winter wasps and the tree withstanding its mutilations. Between the late sun, thief of shadows, and the morning sun, for whom the river would not part, I would say, fall on us, green mountains. Fall, cover us, green hills. Probably should have told you that my grandmother's body floated out of her house, down the street, and into a tree, which is how the body was recovered. And I have a great deal of gratitude for that tree. Okay. I mentioned previously that my father was a copper miner in Arizona. And so I'm going to read you a prose poem from the section of the book called The Accidental, which is a whole series of prose poems that I partly wrote because we talked about this in poetry workshop yesterday. They're always teachers, us, we tell people not to use certain words. And one of the words that I was warned against using in a poem was the word soul. And Gabrielle Bates actually mentioned recently that she was told not to use the word God. So this was my attempt to use the word soul in a poem. And this little digression towards my father found its way into this long series of poems about the soul. The Accidental. Our father brought home stone and words for stone, blue azurite, yellow agate, green malachite, pink granite, iron pyrite, gray flint. He brought home history in stone, fool's gold, slag, pottery shards, geodes, turquoise beads, window panes made from mica, arrowheads carved from obsidian, and fossils of inscrutable shape left behind by an old sea. He brought home truckloads of earth to run through his sluice box, and he panned for gold flakes that he stored in distilled water in a clear glass vial. He made magnets to sort iron filings from the sawdust on his workshop floor. He melted iron and gold into ring-shaped molds he chiseled from riverstone. He tumbled rock smooth to polish tiger's eye for his pocket. He brought home graphite pencils numbered in gradations of hardness and darkness, and he kept his pencils sharpened to the quick and ordered them in a wooden drawer. He made paints from ground minerals and linseed oil. He fired riverbank clay with grass to make brick. He brought home watercolors and brushes and gum erasers and tracing paper with tiny grids. And at night, he penciled tiny decimals into his gridded books while gazing through his scope at the moon. He photographed star trails and orbiting planets, and he practiced mirror writing with his sinister hand. He measured rain and acid levels in rain, in dirt. He walked the radius of the mine, diviner of pipelines and ore lines and shaft lines from the palimpsests of the Ma's previous lives. He made maps and basins of elevations. He made maps of weather and night skies. He made dove calls to summon doves and fish lures to summon fish, to summon the right words, fair words, white words, bright words. He made a box. Okay, one last one. The wall. Where shall I exit and how? From leaves become stone, from riverbed stones and the walls around trees, if you were able. By expulsion through a sieve, never to return, this also. Looking back, the sieve shook violently, and the soul passed through as though passing through itself. But it arrived as though arriving at some other. One which sought the tree within the leaves as it watched the leaves and shook, which fell as the leaves fell from the tree to the sieves of the earth and made stone. The leaves which helixed their vegetable ladders through the layered weight of all the earth and limbed their widowed ghosts into mineral cells. The leaves which writ their veins in stone. The stones which wore their leaves in water down to wall-sized loaves. The stones, so many minds set and in their own way. the soul, who held each stone as leaves in the sieve, who set each stone as leaves in the wall which hungered to begin again, and which reached for the drop at the end of the earth and built itself and grew, as did the railroad track, the highway, and the bridge. And the wall crossed them all. And sleep, which closed its eye to the wall and overwhelmed the earth and its animals, which is its purpose. Thank you. That's what I got.
難しいの。
鏡を見たまえ。22歳だっていうのにメッキリシアが増えちまったぜ。
そんなこと買ってよ。あなたは奥さんじゃあるまいし。
Thank you so much.
ほっといて。
Really apologize. I did introduce you, but we just had a little mic issue. So
ずけずけ言う人だな、あなた。
あの人
you
には
heard it here.
動物に対する愛情なんて全然ないの。
I'm
記事さえ
sorry.
面白ければ。
それは彼の仕事でしょう。
おかしいわ。あなたがかばうなんて。
いや、そういう意味じゃないんだ。僕だって仕事してます。彼とは立場が違うけど。
Oh, okay. I couldn't hear anything other than the Japanese audio, so I'm assuming maybe I was introduced and then I'm gonna go. Right? Oh,
これを見たまえ。
okay. I'm I'm gonna go ahead and go. Hi everyone. I'm Latanya McQueen. I'm gonna read a little bit from my novel When the Reckoning Comes, which is like a Southern Gothic horror with bits of speculative in it. And it centers around this woman named Mira who returns to her hometown to visit her childhood friend, to attend the wedding of her childhood friend, Celine. Mira's Black and her friend is white, and the wedding is being held on a renovated plantation that provides guests with what they call an authentic antebellum-esque experience, complete with reenactments. And also too, the plantation is rumored to be haunted by the ghosts of slaves who are seeking revenge. So I'm gonna read a little bit of a forward and then a little bit from the first chapter. They are coming. In life, heavy was the crown of chains meant to keep their bodies down, but their spirits soon will rise. They are coming with their shackles, wearing them like armor, fuel that reminds them of their purpose. They bring the chains made from wrought iron used across the wrists and ankles as they were stolen onto ships. They bring the iron collar placed on as punishment, its 4 prongs sticking out to keep them still. They bring the leg irons, 2 horseshoe-shaped rings cuffed around the ankles with a bar between. The metal once rubbed against their skin, causing it to bruise and break. They are coming with the branding irons shaped with the initials of the men who seared their flesh, forever marking them with their names. Their own names were taken, erased, but they have them back now. The iron is hot from the burning flame. The skin will flush red after, the dermis deep enough to easily slough off. What remains will be the mark of the men and women who once owned them. They come bringing tools to slaughter and maim. One holds a gelding knife. His hand tightens around the handle, ready to take. They are coming with the whip with its 9 knotted lashes. Their hands carry glass jars of what will be rubbed in after: turpentine, lime juice, hot brine, piss, whatever will make the flesh sting. Virtue you preached came from being beaten, redemption from blood. With the knotted whip raised high, you delivered your sermon. The strike of the lash cracking the skin. In return, the faltering pulse. Nearby, they watched in the fields as you then held your son's hands, teaching your boys to practice the whip on the tree's flesh. Aim for the middle, you taught. Imagine the trunk is the space between the shoulder blades, the safest spot to do the most harm. They come wearing the clothes they died in, clothes worn day in and day out when they were alive. See the house servants with their cast-offs. They are barefoot, subjecting themselves to blisters and cuts rather than suffer wearing anything that would make them hotter. They wear quantiers, softened oxide cut to the shape of a foot and tied together with string. They wear the shoes bought by their masters, children in calico slacks, men tipping their straw hats to the women as they move further along. Women in their Christmas clothes, a few with ribbons tied in their hair. How long did you think after all of this it would be before their souls finally came for you in the night? These men and women remember. They remember the sight of their husbands and sons hanged from the trees they worked under. They remember the feel of the cold metal on their ankles. They remember the taste of it as the iron bit was forced in their mouths. They remember the taste of their own blood mixing with their saliva as it dripped down their faces, soaking what rags of clothes they wore. It is too late to speak of such stories now, for they are coming, ready to sneak into your rooms, tiptoe through the familiar hallways to find you and your loved ones in their beds. And maybe some of you will sense a shift in the air, something unfamiliar in the room. And maybe you'll open your eyes to see, catch a glimpse, but it will not be long, for make no mistake, they will not flinch, they will not hesitate. They have come for you, they have come. And as you open your eyes, the last thing you'll see is the axe as the blade strikes down. Do you see them hovering in the shadows? They are out there hiding in the thicket and behind the darkness of the trees. Hush, and you can hear. It's been said that on a quiet day in the woods, a sound can carry for miles, although trees can absorb it, and there's also the thrush of branches against the wind, stifling what noise can be heard. In the summer, the sudden bursts of rain pound against the earth. Nature's inhabitants, the birds perched on branches, or the frogs with their mating calls, fill the woods with their croak and thrum, their whistle and pitter. During locust season, everywhere you can hear their high-pitched hum, making the air feel electric and alive. Late at night, there's the sound of dogs on a scent, followed by their last yelping howl. Hush, though, and listen. If you're quiet, you can hear their whispers in the water, calling to those left behind. Hush, and you can hear them lurking, waiting for the day they can make their return. Celine was getting married. They hadn't needed to keep in touch for Mira to know how much this wedding meant. As teenagers, Celine filled their spare conversations with talk of gowns and decorations, flavors and cake and themes. Mira entertained the fantasy with her. They had so little in their lives that the dream of a wedding felt extravagant. They'd linger in the magazine aisle of the supermarket, flipping through the bridal pages as they scanned the dresses, sheath or A-line, mermaid or a ball gown, sequins, lace. Celine searched for the perfect one, always thinking she found it to later find another. They were all beautiful, Mira told her. They were all already perfect. But for Celine, it was about more than the dress. The wedding was a chance for her to be seen as someone worthy, as beautiful, as deserving of the attention spent. Still, they weren't teenagers anymore, and it had been a decade since she'd seen Celine, almost as long as the heyday of their friendship. They hadn't been friends for a long time, but Mira wondered about all of those years in the beginning. How long did the sense of obligation to someone last? Did she owe it to Celine to come to her wedding if they'd once been friends? Well, I don't know what I'll do if you're not there, Celine continued on the phone, and a knot of guilt wrangled inside of her. Celine told her the wedding would be during the height of summer. Mira mentally mapped out the logistics of the trip, allowing herself to entertain the possibility. Of course, she'd have to find something in her closet to wear, buy a dress on sale if she couldn't. A summer wedding meant she wouldn't have to take off from teaching. It was not a long drive from Winston-Salem. It would only take a couple hours if she didn't hit any traffic, a half day at most. If she left early enough, it wouldn't be so bad. A new dress, the cost of gas, and the expense of a hotel for a night or two. She could afford all that. So it wasn't a question of if she could or couldn't go. The real question was if she wanted to, and she couldn't say she did, not with any real sense of authority. If it's the money, don't worry about it. I'll pay for your room. I can send you money for your travel too. Anything you need, Mira. Just let me know. All you have to do is come. Mira bristled. Was this another insult hiding underneath? She couldn't be sure. You don't have to pay for my travel. I can afford it. Oh, I didn't mean, I know you can afford it, but free is always better, isn't it? What about your room? It's the least I can do. They've made these sweet-sized cottages on the property. I'm sure you'll love it. Wait, Mira said. It hadn't occurred to her to ask where the wedding would be. She'd assumed it'd be at the country club right on the border of the town, near the golf course and the old moneyed homes, but the mention of cottages threw her off. Where are you having this? The millionaire bought and renovated the old Woodsman property. It's become a pretty popular touristy place since it opened. We're going to be the first to have our wedding there, which is a little exciting when you think about it. Celine, you can't be serious, Mira blurted, refusing to hide her disapproval. You can't possibly be having your wedding at that plantation. You wouldn't even recognize it now, Celine responded, missing Mira's point. The property has been completely redone. Celine shouldn't have known it wasn't about what the place looked like, but then Celine hadn't been with them that day, only heard the story afterward like everyone else. Mira and Jesse were the ones who'd snuck off, and in the time since, who knew what it had become? The history rewritten, erased, having become something entirely new. This was what Celine was trying to convince Mira of as she pressed the phone against her cheek and thought back to a past she'd hoped to forget, to the girl she'd been, and to the friends she'd loved. Celine, what about Jesse? Did you invite him too? Oh, of course I invited him, and yes, he's coming. He's fine with the whole thing. We spent a lot of time together since he found out about the wedding. He's really been supportive. And I worried over the expense. He convinced me I was being foolish, and he's helped me decide on decorations and all the stuff Philip couldn't be bothered with. I don't think Jesse would be interested in this. I didn't think Jesse would be interested in this sort of thing, but maybe he's just lonely. I never see him talk to too many people around here. He keeps mostly to himself. It was as if the wind had been knocked out of her. Mira leaned against the counter, breathing hard. It not only surprised her that Jesse would want to be involved, but that, at least from Celine's perspective, they'd become friends again. Whereas Mira couldn't remember the last time she'd heard from him. She didn't know what to make of any of this. She spent years trying not to think about Jesse, but what had happened between them. Hearing Celine talk about Jesse made her heart ache with longing and regret. When she left Gibson, she'd also left him, thereby creating a resoluteness to the possibility of what could have been. What did you say when you invited him, Mira asked Celine. How did he respond? I told him where it was and asked if he'd be okay attending. He said it was all so long ago. He didn't care about what happened back then. I asked him if he was sure and he shrugged it off. He's okay with it, really, Mira. In fact, he seemed a little excited about it, if you could believe that. Mira didn't believe it, but what else was there to say if she was telling the truth? You can think of this as a sort of vacation if you want. That will make you say yes. Vacation. Mira held in her laugh as she considered the proposition. Nothing about someone else's wedding could seem like a vacation to the ones not getting married, but she decided not to give Celine an answer on the spot. Instead, asked her for a little more time to think about it. She figured maybe if enough time passed, she would just not pick up the phone if Celine called, ignore any emails sent. The decision would be made for her. After the wedding, she could play it off as if she had forgotten to respond, but she'd become too preoccupied with the end of the school year. She'd make sure a few weeks later to send a nice gift, something from Neiman's, a gift she couldn't afford but would buy for a childhood friend anyway. Mira had made up her mind, or so she had thought, but a few days after her conversation with Celine, she received another call, an unrecognizable number on her cell. Mira had missed it but saw the voicemail. She hit play and listened. Hi, Mira. Celine gave me your number. I hope it's all right, a man's voice began, followed by a pause, and she knew in that instant who it was. He forced out a slight laugh before giving a deep-throated cough, an attempt at buying time while figuring out what else to say. It's been a long time, I know. I just wanted to call and I don't know, he started again, and Mira wished she could know what thoughts lay in the space between his words. Whatever came next would be a revision, only a fraction of the truth. I've missed you, he said, and the message ended. Mira called Jesse back immediately, but the phone rang and rang. Flustered by the beep of his voicemail and not knowing what to say, she ended the call and didn't try again. Listening to the message, she could picture him, scrawny and tall, ashy knees and elbows, his freckled golden skin and the afro curls the sun had tinted a reddish brown. As he talked, she imagined him rubbing his hand over his mouth, an attempt at masking the small cleft on his upper lip. He was always self-conscious about the way it looked, and she imagined the mustache he tried to grow when they were younger had now fully come into being. After Mira couldn't get a hold of Jesse, she called Celine back. Yes, I'll go to the wedding, she said, as she circled the date on her wall calendar. Yes, yes, she repeated, reassuring Celine, but also in a way herself. She'll be there. She'd come. Thank you.
Hey, wait.
boys spread. Inside our folds, under our arms and behind our knees, we also love one another. Remember? The one who was you but different. The one you were supposed to leave behind. I love Carolyn. Carolyn because we didn't go to the same school and I had to wait for each other in stiff winter clothing for summer when we could be mostly naked. School was bad for many reasons, one of which was that I only had one pair of the jeans with the right insignia embroidered on the small front pocket. Imagine would make me run fast, walk out along the beach, like the girl with the long flowing hair. Wore these jeans in the commercial. Instead, I put me in with two girls with similar jeans. And through the long school months, we walked in a defensive wall, arms linked against boys and their bad words, bitch, huge, snatch, sweat, or against other girls and their lesser outfits. During sixth grade, our movements nearly stopped. We walked on our wall or sat in a circle on the playground traits. A yellow heart for a red balloon, a boring teddy bear for a soft window attached to the cloud. I didn't dare trade for what I really wanted, the stickers from Matisse that Melissa Carlisle and I owned. The Mylar Disco-Ball, the new sticker filled with swirls of oil that seemed intricately connected to the royal essence. And it was the year the school nurse marched into our classroom and sent the boys out into the hall. She was on a hunt for the bandit who was clogging the toilets with maxi pads. She held one up, Exhibit A. I was surprised to see that the path was harmless, like a small boat made of clouds. I imagined I'd put one between my legs and sail into a different, more dangerous land. But summer was another land, a public swimming pools and vacations for Carolyn's family to the beach in California. For 4 years, we caravanned across 2 states, hot and sticky inside cars without air conditioning, surrounded by the smell of siblings and car food, dank apples and raisins that stuck to our legs like large moles. Among the welter, we kept our status as losers by reminding each other we owned the only 2 pairs of roller skates among 5 brothers and sisters. And we envisioned California, where we'd skate free along the sidewalks that wrapped around our campgrounds. Our background, a soft rock album cover, a silhouetted palm tree, and a pleasant orange and yellow sunset. We'd be miniature roller skating Amazons. Our legs, strong from swimming, would listen to coconut. Of course, our parents usually made us share our roller skates. So for this, we devised a plan. We took off one skate each, tossed the other over our shoulder to a waiting brother or sister, enjoying ourselves in motion by skating on our inside legs and holding each other's waist for balance. We had to force our legs in because they kept moving out, as if our combined bodies doing splits. And we had to keep our inside legs hitched shut for 1, 2, 3, 4 seconds until we fell into each other like heavy mosquitoes. We would skate and crash. We made a pocket of stunted motion until we sealed ourselves together by being stupid and the same. And we were the same. Summer we were 7, we each lost a front tooth the same week. Our swim team bathing suit was the same bright blue, so when we dove underwater, our bodies blurred into identical little sea creatures. The woman who sold us ice cream said, "You must be sisters." And once after sleepover, Carolyn's mother told us that we talked to each other while we slept. She heard our voices at 3 o'clock, but when she went to check on us, our eyes were closed, our lips gently moving. We were talking in our dreams. After this, I was afraid to sleep over. Not for that night, but the weekend before, I had a dream I didn't want Carolyn Sunday to hear. I dreamed of weddings, of everything so white, as if I'd been trapped by the tiny white dots the TV screen or buried in a hole in the snow. I was at my aunt's wedding, standing below a huge cake. The cake fell over, the 4-story cake that was the shape of a woman in a wedding dress. It hit the ground and exploded as if it had been shot. That's when Paul's face came to me, Aunt. as I read miles to catch up. I woke up in the dark and said, I'll marry your brothers so we can be sisters. Caroline rolled over and mumbled, I do. The last summer we went to the beach was between 6th grade and junior high. It was the summer our mothers ganged up on us. Fixed plan, but we felt it. We were separately persuaded to leave our swim suits at home, the one-piece racers that made our bodies safely one solid unit. Carolyn's mom, I bought her a clean string and I was there at the tape, but she pulled it out of the shopping bag, slowly with her slippery heel dangled in front of Caroline's eyes. I bargained for a bikini that fit tight across the top and flattened me out. Still, there was my stomach, moving and separate, loitering between the upper and lower parts, in dialogue with nothing. This summer, we wore our t-shirts until the last possible moment, until the celebration. Driving into the parking lot, everyone tried to see it first, but it wasn't like spotting the swimming pool as we approached in our carpool at home. It wasn't that single thing we could point to. It was a wide band that saw us, had us surrounded. It made us scream as we ran down the beach, finally pull off our shirts and making sacrifice. And then we ran faster as that beach hit steeper slope as our feet began running without us. We shouted ourselves into tears of motion because our brothers were behind us, trying hard to catch up. Although I didn't mind this year about Carolyn's brother Paul. We tried to play our tricks on Paul while he slept. Two-piece mustache, angel nails, or bicycle pump and belly button. A stunt that made a great party noise. But Paul was older than my brother. He slept through most of these things, and when he did wake up, was excited by the attention and ready to try the party belly button trick on himself. Paul set traps at his door, tin cans that clattered over when he tried to sneak up on him. Paul would scream ferociously if he woke to find us near his bed. He had wild hair, streaked by the sun, and he once told me that I had beautiful arms. I felt him run behind me and then paused. I let him tag me in the back. And that was when Caroline lost the routine. She was ahead of me, so I didn't see it happen, but I imagined it something like something from Ovid, the way his open bird that making watery fingers, untying the bikini and tossing it loosely, a flimsy piece of seaweed, a god's laughter booming up along the shore. I remember how the beach looked junkier than usual, littered with wrappers and cigarette butts, and one slimy flesh-colored balloon. I remember the feeling as I stopped and didn't rush in that something had shifted. California, the beach, and nature had conspired with our mothers. The world was doubly exposed and slightly outside of us, no longer in alignment with our desires. And I'm going to jump ahead a little bit. What happens is she kind of Paul laughs and points to Carolyn, and the narrator laughs to kind of sort of helpless laugh. Carolyn just like darts up the sand, and the narrator tries to apologize. That doesn't quite go through. But then begrudgingly says, okay, let's just get back to our plan. They decide to bury themselves in the sand, still with their heads, and there's imagery of kind of like bury ourselves with like joined. Sort of way, and then Caroline's father comes along, and first they realize they're trapped, like the sand is so heavy they can't get out, and then secondly, Caroline's father comes along and gives them like huge breaths, which is funny but also very, just kind of disturbing, and that really does it for Caroline. So I'm going to skip to the end. Okay. The next day, Carolyn would go into the water, or the day after that. While our brothers and sisters went to the beach, we spent our time lying on the docks, trying to catch crabs with bubble gum attached to the ends of strings. We set traps by lowering the chewed up treasure right down to the crabs' doorsteps. When the crabs crawled out and got the claws stuck, we reeled them up to the dock, spinning. We're probably giving them heart attacks, Carol said. She dropped one into our plastic bucket, made a grimace with her face, and held it over the top of the bucket like a lid. Stupid crabs, she told them. But when one crab's body fell off and we pulled up just a bit of his arm, she looked disturbed and scampered down to the rock to find the rest of it. If we hold the body up to the arm, it might be content, she told me. And I remembered our school nurse, the same nurse who lectured us on the proper use of snacks. She once instructed us to save our paper or any small appendage in a plastic bag in the event we cut something off. She said that the matrix of the tissues of severed parts wouldn't forget each other. They would rebond, open right back up. But once Caroline was down on the docks, she gave up quickly. She climbed back up to the dock and lay down on her back with her t-shirt strategically bunched. I followed her back up and dumped out a bucket full of crabs, gently, but so she would notice, and let them flop back into the sea. When she didn't respond, I put my roller skates and rode in circles around her so the slats of the dock rumbled under her arms and legs. I performed spins and leaps. I wanted her to be inspired or jealous of how I could be light and powerful, a goddess of the air and rocks and sky. But Caroline had sealed off her energy along the border. Before, her energy had been something I could walk into, feel around, suck up like a mist. Now it was guarded, and she vibrated. It seemed with the effort of just being separate. Now she acted like an off-limits sticker or an hurricane zucchini. This made me not want to share with her, but to grab what she had, like white meat, to steal it for myself. I took off my skates and sat down. I put my hand on her stomach and smoothed out her shirt. She pretended I wasn't there, so I pretended she was dead and that I was preparing her for a funeral. I brought my fingers up over her face, touched her eyelids, and smoothed down her eyebrows. I fanned her hair out around her head, took off my bracelet, and set it on her stomach as an offering. I got close and stared down at her. I pressed the tips of my eyelashes into hers. I put my hand on her stomach and made it crawl slowly up under her shirt. I thought of measles, chicken pox, red lumps, that were contagious. When I touched her nipple, it felt like half the brain sliding under silk. I said, "See, I'm not afraid of you." I rolled away down the dock and waited to see if she would come back.
Thank you so much, Jenny. Thank you to all of you.
We still have Latanya. We still have Latanya McQueen with us.
Hi, Tanya. So sorry about all the technical issues. I wanted to introduce you, and we did introduce Gina. It's just that it's all our fault. We apologize, but we could hear you. We heard all these beautiful readings, and on such a heavy day, these terrific poems, these terrific stories are long. So thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
So
She left.
we have a few people signed up for the open mic. If there are any other people who maybe came late, participate in the conference, want to get it on, or if there's anyone here who wants to read, let them sign up. You should come up here. See Sarah? That's Sarah. Sarah's awesome. So come sign up. Come read. We only got a handful of people.
I only bullied one. And I only bullied one.
You've only had to bully one. It's amazing that you bullied anybody, Sarah. It's really not your MO.
I'm so tough.
I didn't say you were tough. I just just said you weren't a bully, because, you know. And neither is our person here. Please welcome to the stage, Hayden Miller.
Oh man, Ryan gave us a lesson on how to use microphones the other day.
Hi, I'm Ava Miller. I am a YTW workshop leader. It's a good time. So I have two pieces for you tonight. I kind of keeping on the theme of puberty. I'm going to be giving you a mood whiplash here, being like kind of a sad piece versus like really funny. So hopefully it hits. My first piece is working title called "Fail Better." It's based off of Samuel Beckett. Because I'm edgy. And it's about something that happened to me at the age of 14, which you'll probably see. Okay, fail better. Done. Again. 30 of hurt, of breath, wasted. Body is liquid, body is mud. Face streaks of water. Friend was last. He stands, hands on knees, throats of water. Our stomachs are empty, are hurt. Our limbs are liquid. Again, the word is failure. 33 is too high a number. 30 or less. Again, 30 escapes us. 33. We are 14. The weather is 90, late July. Failure sees us into October. We have no breath. Breath lingers on in an army crawl, in direct sunlight. 90. Breath knocked out by a 10-foot fall. Fall into mud. Tears do not wash off mud. Lovely shower washes off mud, but not failure. Failure of 33. We are 14, already breaking. We try again, fail again. 2 miles, 2 miles wasted. We throw up water, aching knees, hips of a 90-year-old, weather is 90. Morning of July into night of October goes on for 14 because we always fail. We fail to hit 30. Finally, 33 is acceptable. 33 shower brings us into October. Because of too much hurt, too many broken knees, breath is gone for good. 2 miles for 30 brings us 14. We are 14. We have failed. Failure is acceptable now. We are not. Done. To get out my giant binder because I wrote this today. This was at Jennifer's workshop. I had a lot of fun doing it, and the prompt was a how-to piece. For something you know how to do really well. So I was inspired to tell about my journey knitting. Okay. Again, I don't have a title for this. I'm just calling it how to knit. Number 1, rely on death. One of the nicest old ladies at church passed away unexpectedly, even though she was on the younger side of old church ladies. She loved to knit, so her husband brought the plastic containers of knitting materials to church for the remaining church ladies, and not being a knitter, you didn't pay attention to this until the bins had been at church for a few weeks. And you think to yourself, well, I've always wanted to knit. My excuse is that I haven't had the material, so now's my chance. Knowing jack shit about knitting, we take size 10 needles, pretty much the only needles that were left, and fuzzy thin yarn because it looks pretty. Number 2, look up a YouTube tutorial on how to knit and realize that you're absolutely not supposed to learn to knit with fuzzy thin yarn. It's too easy to get tangled into oblivion with fuzzy thin yarn, you idiot. You're supposed to begin knitting with thick yarn so that you can see the stitches better, obviously. Fortunately, your mom managed to dig out an old skein of moderately thick yarn from her erotic fiction author ex-coworker gave to her. It's still fuzzy yarn, you idiot, but it'll do the trick. Turns out there's not enough yarn in the skein to make the scarf you wanted to make, but you make a respectable rectangle. The rectangle will serve as a coaster for your Bluetooth speaker for the next several years. Number 3, forget literally everything. Your mom is unwilling to spend money on a fairly expensive new hobby. You try to argue until you realize that that cute skein of yarn at Joann Fabrics is $12? And needles are 10 per pair? Oh, hell no! It's okay though, got a lot of stuff to do before graduation. Number 4, avoid the dead. Dang, your grandma died. That sucks. It also sucks that she was a hoarder, and now you have to clear out your house so that the family can sell it. Your mom finds your grandma's knitting materials, so now you have a few more needles. But for yarn, hell no. That yarn is from the 70s, and now we're living in the 21st century, and it's crusty. You're not trying to wear your grandma's musty, crusty, dusty scarf. Hard pass. Number 5. Go to your college's club fair and realize that your college has a knitting club. Perfect. As a freshman, you're looking to get involved and wave your college's foam finger around to show that you did make the right choice to apply early decision. The 2 girls at the table are on either side of the spectrum of stereotypical knitter. One has glass with short bangs and flower tattoos. The other one looks like what an old library would look like if it came to life. Yes, to say, we sell what we knit and we donate the proceeds to charity, and we provide materials. Sign me up, home skillet. You also sign up for Metal Club because you are not on the stereotypical knitting spectrum. Number 6, attend the first meeting of knitting club. When they ask you if you knit, brush your hair behind your ear like Radio Rebel and say, yeah, I do. When they hand you the proper size needles and nice yarn crashing burn, you couldn't cast on if one of the co-presidents held a gun to your head. Noticing that you're losing your mind, the co-president Autumn sits you down and helps to re-educate you. Suddenly you're going to town on what will be your first scarf. Number 7, knit your worst scarf. You go back to revisit your early rectangle with a professional eye and realize that it's garbaggio. The fuzzy yarn barely hides the fact that you dropped a ton of stitches. Hindsight is a wonderful thing, isn't it? Of course, since you're in the process of knitting the scarf, you don't realize that it's equally lumpy and ugly and trash. Number 8, knit the worst hat. Rinse and repeat, except you look down on your scarf and now you're using circular needles to knit the wonkiest hat. You're trying to knit a beanie and you're making a beret. You're not in Paris, you're in Minnesota. Number 9, knit more hats. Now that you successfully knitted 2 things, your mom will buy you yarn. So you're going nuts making hats. Beanie after beanie, good ones. People actually want your hats now. You consider making your own one-man hat business called Beanie Boys, so you can make the hats after Beastie Boys songs. You're right to buy my hats, sucker. Number 10, survive the plague. Dang, there's COVID. That sucks. Now that there are online classes, you're knitting all the time in class because it's the only thing keeping you sane. Professors ask you what you're making, and you say, oh, I'm knitting a hat. You act like that's just the thing to do, but you're secretly holding it over your classmates' heads that they'd all be looking to you for anti-frostbite gear and a 1700s winter. You should not knit a face mask. It doesn't work. Number 11, don't knit, commit. When it's finally safe to come back to campus, you've got good news. Knitting Club loves you. You're in the running for president. Number 12, do something completely different. The girl you hate can crochet. She makes scrunchies and you look at them angrily and think, I could do so much better. It just so happens that someone gave you a crochet book by accident, so why not try it? Apparently you shouldn't, because there are completely different art forms, so knitters can't crochet and crocheters can't knit. But after another YouTube tutorial, you're crocheting just fine. You can make a square like nobody's business. Maybe you're a demigod. Step 1, question your mortal heritage. Number 13, ascend. After 2 years of being a faithful knitting club attendee, you're elected in a landslide victory. You can both knit and crochet, and you can teach other people how to do it too. Sure, they might put it off forever like you did. The point is that you've got a pretty cool lifelong skill, all because of pretty art in your eye at church. Now you just have to finish that cardio. Thank you.
What is that? I've never seen that name before. Give it up one more time for Ava Miller.
Woo!
Okay, and like also like I don't know if we're still going out or what. You need to like trademark that. The piece that you need to do that right now. Like if that was a food truck, it probably already exists. Like you need to like make that go. Thank you, Ava. But that was good. Good times. I can do none of this thing. Next up, coming to the stage. I'm so glad this person's reading because everything else. Why not do that? You know, coming off the 1s and 2s and coming to the stage. One of my favorite writers, Sarah O'Hagan.
I'm so nervous to be on.
It's Bendy. Yeah.
Okay. I also wrote this today, yesterday, so you're gonna watch me stumble through some handwriting situations. And also, I want to begin at the corner of 13th and Reed Street. I want to begin with this photograph 3x5 and fingerprinted of a row of lilac bushes overtaken by monarch butterflies. I want to begin with the boy who was unable to buy me flowers, so he gave me a photograph from his childhood home, wanting me to feel what he felt when he took that photo on a disposable Fujifilm 35mm camera some 400 miles away. He was 20 when he gave that photograph. I was parked in a 1994 blue-green Nissan sedan across the street from his grandparents' house, short and white and dwarfed anyway by a huge labyrinthine ramp overwhelming the front lawn. I was 16 or 17. I was not supposed to be in the same room. Previously, I had only driven through it on the way to or from the cool coffee shop across the river that sold out smoking indoors. Today, Jeremy had a gift for me. I have never called him Jeremy before this moment, but that was his government name. Jeremy Slade Combs, who moved here from Minnesota. They don't know that. What I do know is this. His wheelchair was heavy duty, but not state of the art. I didn't need it until spring when it was dry enough to be safe enough to drag his motorized chair 2.5 miles uphill. According to Google Maps, it would take me 49 minutes to walk this route. Once the weather was wet, he was up and home. There was this movie, Pumpkin, that came out in 2002, starring Christina Ricci as a bright-eyed, blonde sorority president who does not want to volunteer for the Special Olympics. She says some horrifyingly A-list things. It's one of those quiet indie films family video having no grease in the air. Ricci's stunning, shallow sorority girl falls in love with a challenged athlete with an unspecified developmental handicap. She's taken up the sorority and his mom accuses her of assault. Why a whole lot of people decided they wanted to make this movie, I don't know. Why Ricci's character has no depth, I don't know. Why I decided it was my favorite movie as a teen, I thought I was neat. I don't know if I genuinely enjoyed it, but I rented it over and over again, made my parents filled with my interest in this very weird and lit narrative. Favorite movie? Pumpkin. I paused, rolled aside, and looked at the dusty window above my bedroom door, tilted slightly open. My heart does something vague and intense in my chest. Pumpkin. Yeah, it's Christina Ricci. You say Pumpkin? Oh, you love Pumpkin. You love Pumpkin. Love Pumpkin. In front of my body, it's center, fetal, and homey. He tells me the closing credits include his favorite song, and now I'm about it by a young Canadian artist I'd seen on Jay Leno one night. Changed my personality to match her pop punk. No fucks given by Rings by Beatles. I was then and am still now pretty convinced that song is not in that movie. But just because he knew, but just the same, he knew my songs and associated them with my movies, and it had nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
Sarah's probably the hardest working person in the Quad Cities. And maybe a lot of other days too, but like for sure. Thank you, Sarah. Our next reader is awesome, and you should definitely check her out playing music around the Quad Cities and other places too. Please welcome the stage, Cass. Woo!
Hey.
Hello. The first poem that I'm going to read is called Poem for When You Are in a Pink Bikini and Driving with Your Windows Down, Passing a Dead Deer on the Highway. That shitty little town sure didn't know what hit it, blazing past in our two pieces. thighs growing slicker and sticking to the leather of my 2006 Ford Escape. Little Midwestern white church in the middle of nowhere, America, with a billboard out front telling me life begins at conception. A concept to counter with, and exactly when does it end? Every heartbeat matters, and just a few hundred more feet, with a curly-haired, chubby-cheeked baby trying to sell me self-shame, couldn't I say, so who decided mine could stay? Throbbing, aching, gasping in the panic of my ribcage. I swear that baby frowned as we skidded past, sun rubbed down. I Kissed a Girl by Katy Perry, blaring out all fours of the vehicle, where she'll ask me if I've kissed a girl yet. Apply her chapstick, vanilla, not cherry, for clarity, for my defense. Open her umbrella on the passenger side, suns in her eyes, she says. I'll tell her, no, don't do that while I'm driving. It's bad luck to open it in a car. It counts as indoors. When we're coasting at 55 miles per hour and cracked open at the head like this, sunset painting us at all angles, pink and yellow swimsuits, still slightly damp, holding to the scent of the lake and the clovers we laid in, stretched and sunbathing. Well, feel the most alive I've felt in maybe days, but probably weeks. Barefoot stepping on my own gas pedal of my own red car at my own speed, we'll pass a dead year. Crumpled into a carcass, cockeyed on the shoulder of this old two-lane highway that killed it. Her red fur turned gray, patchy, partly removed of vulture perches on her ribcage. Tore her open, finished with the highway started, bloody his beak, and I meet both his apathetic gaze and her vacant stare. The stench of death seeps into the car about 100 feet after. Sneaky like that, sure. Curling in the cab while the weight of her eyes curls the corner of my brain. In this scene, my hair wildly wisping at my cheeks and tortoiseshell, big-eyed sunglasses resting on the fall of my nose, over a June-warmed smile on my lips, my tan body, little pink bikini, matching a joyous radiance, for once, of me so perfectly, while the rot of a carcass holds a tingling sting to my nasal cavities and the hollow of my eyes. This is the only affair that feels sacrilegious. In trend of Ava and Sarah, I'm also going to read something that I wrote today. Woo! Kind of last night, but we can talk about it today. So this was actually from a prompt from Gina Franco's workshop, and we were basically given a list of words that we came up with, 3 to each 14 lines to make a 14-line poem, where we had to try to include 2 to 3 of those words in each line. I hope you got that. Love, taste, like the salt on their lips. The pockmark newly covered on their chin, pushing against summer drift, twiddling its body, heart, hips, from the grasp of the throbbing head to the quiver of the tea kettle. Left whistling and preening on the stove with lovers supine on the kitchen floor. Purifying the liar, pulling the cure from coral lips. Sunset glow, painting love as is. Passion, with commitment cinched to its hip when the windows wobble, the screen door, the floorboards gnarl, the screen door rattles, and the roots simply sink deeper in soil. Never curling into the temptations pearl of tragedy. Muskmelon on the counter, cavernous center, carved with orange tendrils and seeds in the sink, the knife resting dormant. No ringing in the ears, no hovering twang, no burst. No secret that a voice crooning to soothe is a hard choice, week after week after week, of love perfuming life's week. This one is just entitled Bitch. I killed my motherly instincts before they were born. I tore them out of my body and ate them off a platter with a silver spoon and an antique butter knife. Buried in the engraved details of the silverware are past lives of those who owned the vintage tools before me. Plastered to the sleek surface of the metal is the red liquid that dies in my veins alone. The blood isn't on my hands. I take no ownership. This is why I eat with instruments. My calloused palms and the tap water and the dish soap can scrub the blood out, but the past lives that dirty the crevices are too stubborn to remove. I wouldn't want to anyways. Grit pays the rent. I made a house out of stolen memories, and I'll make a home the same exact way. The ridges adorning my slender fingers' intense neck always far outweighed anything my womb could produce. I want the pearls, the chains, the gold champagne. I want to submerge myself in my own Hollywood backyard pool, and I want to drown there too. I want to die drenched in the life I created, I built. Blade by stolen blade. I want to live for myself, goddammit. Why is that such a sin? Don't turn this into a confession. Don't pray for me. Don't pity me. Don't sympathize. Don't even turn me into the face of the modern woman. I'm not your movement's fucking parent. Let me live and let me die for myself, alone, with silver on my fingers, my neck, and my dining table in a hollow chamber beneath my core. This doesn't end in a shift in demeanor or the exposure of a healed stop expecting it to. My teeth are still bared, and as far as I'm concerned, you are still listening for the snap of them. Stop tracing your fingertips along my exterior, looking for a crack to wedge yourself into and pry. There is no opening for your nails to curl underneath and pull, no layer for you to delicately remove. Stop fucking asking for one. Call me a bitch and go home already.
Do that one more time, Cass. Right. That's so cool. That, like, that takes a lot of
The
guts to get
student
up.
becomes the teacher.
What? Oh. Yeah, I mean, it takes a lot of guts to get up and read in any context, I think, like anywhere or on Zoom, like, you know, I'm gonna share something that I made with strangers, less so strangers, maybe here, but to do that with things that you wrote like 24 hours ago or less is bananas. So thank you all for being brave with that. Awesome. Next up, coming to the stage, longtime friend of the Best Friends Center for poet Joe Chambers. Joe. It's all good. No worries.
You got to print it out bigger.
Same. Pretty large.
That's what I do.
Yeah, 100%.
This is this first one is something that we've all kind of become familiar with the last couple of years. So this one is called Zoom By. Stumble, bumble, jumble verses to witness nurses, COVID reverses. Zoom on tablet screen. Last seen from another state. Tablet cradled by digits, latex glove. a nurse's crisis kindness, spark of grace that flames in ICU, where oxygen whispers from tanks, vain encouragement to ventilator patients, where breath fades, souls transfigured to shades, now memories on pixel painted screens. This is sort of a non-seasonal poem. It comes from a different part of the Iowa weather here. It's called Beclouded. Cloud pieces fluttered down all day. A foot of snow swirls, drips, erases sidewalks and roads. Tomorrow, engines will rumble, steel blades will scrape piles of snow along the streets, driveways, and sidewalks. But tonight, snow clouds dance across the land. Trees sway in time, regret their roots. This at least did come from a prompt. This was one of several poems that I ended up writing as a result of the prompt for the Iron Pen contest.
Okay.
Which had to do about more fire. I don't remember the exact quote. I don't remember it down.
Oh, it's gonna torture me.
I wanted to say it was more fire.
All I wanted to say. What I first wanted to say was more fire.
There you go. Yeah, what I first wanted to say was more fire. Well, this one is called Firefight. What I first wanted to say was more fire, enough to carbonize a pasty-faced liar and his coterie of parasites who sucked the honey of hives they didn't fill. Burn a country's every institution to blow away their crumbled ash in a puff of bluster. More fire, first, to burn every house, apartment building, every car and commuter train, every field of wheat. Leave nothing for invaders, especially no children to dress in school uniforms of lies.
Yeah.
One more time, Joe. Our next reader coming to the stage has been at the conference the entire time, and we're so glad. Please welcome Barbara Schmidt. Barbara.
So yeah, I just ran away from home for 3 days.
Good place to do it.
I have a collection of short stories titled Broke Out One. Some have described them as Midwest Gothic. This is one of the shorter ones. I'm gonna just dive in.
Sure.
6 jars. The scratch of a fountain pen broke the dead silence. Rosie McDonald's children stared at the cell phone lying in the middle of the large round table in the Morton, Wilson, and Morton funeral home. They provided information for the death certificate, decided on a date and time, and reached an agreement finally on music for the service. Those with the strongest opinions prevailed. Patricia chose the classic Rock of Ages. Roger, the religious son-in-law, insisted on one that mentioned Jesus by name. And Connie, one of the twins, via phone from her office 2,000 miles away, Connie didn't want it until she got candlelit. Next up, announced Morgan Younger, was a walk through the cellar to select a casket and wine. But I thought she was being cremated, said Lonnie, the other twin. Roger cleared his throat and answered, Penny and I don't think it's wrong to be cremated. Can't we just bury her? Doug was your basic atheist, not the shouted in your face kind. He just wasn't into confrontation in general. Roger kept going. Her body will be raised, Anna. Patricia, Morton probably fearing a repeat of the battle of the hymns, interceded. Patricia, the executor, appealed. Mom chose cremation.
Bonnie gave Roger a Solera. Doug shrugged. Very well, said Morton. I can show you some urns. Hey guys, California kind of piped in by an cell phone. Have Morty fill 2 little urns. I want each of my kids to have some of their grand's ashes. Oh, for Christ's sake, said the atheist. Bonnie's forehead hit the table with a thud. Morton nodded. We can do that. Patricia spoke slowly. I don't think that would be right, splitting Mama. Amen, said Roger. He looked to Penny to please her, to back him up, but her mind didn't hide. Counted stealing cards. Well, Penny finally spoke up. We have 3 children. So what, we need 5, 6 urns, Morton inquired. The profit margin on multiple urns outweighing the opinion of the executive. Count me out, Lonnie pushed back his chair. That's just creepy. Patricia's head was splitting. Whatever you all want, she said. What she was thinking, she kept to herself. That the reading of the will ought to be interesting. Just wait until they find out Ron gave all their money away. Most of it to casinos. So we won't all fight over it when I'm gone, she said. After her siblings drove off to begin negotiations for floral arrangements, Patricia told Mort to put the ashes in the standard plastic bag. When we were ready, she'd divvy them up herself later. And she did. After dark, on the eve of the funeral, she slid open the black plastic and spread the ashes around her rose bushes. Then, by the light of the moon, she filled the urns from the silver disc at the bottom of her leather brick.
Yeah.
Like all of us have gone through so many nights.
So good.
I gotta say, I like that there's a character Mort in this story.
Get it one more time, Barbara. Just got a bubble, rubber charcoal grill. I like it. It's great. So if there's anybody else out there sitting on something they want to read, like now's the time, because I have one more reader on my list and I'm about to say her name. Another longtime friend of YW and recent graduate of Augustana College, I believe. Please welcome to the stage, Madeline Young.
Way back there, so here's okay. I haven't done this for a few years. It's been very strange. The pandemic has made it so poetry has not been in my life all that much. But you know, I think on these days where there's so much communal like pain and fear, it is so helpful for me to like share those personal moments of both that conflict, but also more importantly the joys. So I'll read 2 poems for you tonight, the first of which is titled My Heart Has Not Broken. My heart has not broken, it's breaking into 1,000 tiny crows, scallops, and petals, falling feet first into concrete cisterns and whispering I love yous to pita bread, rose petals, and chicken pox stars which are cavernous and hereditary. You remind me that my body is a low, slow place of memory and wonder, where the touches that held me deep in my lungs are absent and misplaced. But I cannot help the desire a finger trace along my spine of my shoulders. This is where I find myself, in the looping of a wheel, going forwards and backwards at the same time. This is to say your absence is deafening. This is to say my mind is quieter now.
And then the second poem I'll be reading tonight is titled To Coreopsis and Goldenrod Calling. To Coreopsis and Goldenrod calling, or the trees of heaven falling together in clumps, each cloud a wisp of watercolor, red maple leaves tinged crimson by the softening of sun. My body moves through the water. I am covered in dust. Fall together, young saplings, before the winter comes to strip you of your skin. Outward coreopsis. Join your brothers in their rhythm. Cry, dear maple. Weep sap for all the leaves that you have left. We are all mutants once, briefly touching without ever returning. It is returning, where my body is the water is the coreopsis, the goldenrod, the tree of heaven, the red maple. The moment makes a way. The gold will soon be brown, the dust will soon be dust, and we'll find ourselves in silence. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Ryan's gonna come up here in a second and thank all of them for the important people in our lives that made this happen. And he's gonna tell you how wonderful you are for being here. But he is actually the reason we're all here. And he has not had a plus tonight. So
Co-captain, Sarah, right there, for sure. No doubt. I mean, if you think we've had technical difficulties, like, it was just me. Nothing would have happened. We'd all be confused. Nothing would be accomplished. It would be terrible. Get it one more time for Madeline, please. Keep coming back.
Yes.
We miss you. It was great to hear you read. It's been a while.
I miss you too.
For sure. Please do, for sure. We'll have other opportunities. And like, you know, what you said before you read those beautiful poems, got me thinking about a little bit what Ross Gay was saying last night during the keynote about being able to be with sorrow and how that capacity in turn sort of deepens your capacity for joy.
Yeah.
Right. And I think it's like one of those things that you hear expressed in different ways and articulated by different people at different times. But the way you expressed it last night, particularly given a lot of what's happening, it hits really hard. So I hope if you were trying to deal with sorrow right now for whatever reason, I hope that eventually it leads to a greater capacity for joy. And I think we'll close on that. You got one more day for the conference. I'm really looking forward to it. It's been really great. Please give it up one more time for our instructors if they can hear us, or for posterity. Going for Sarah. Give it up one more time for Russ Talks. Space for so much wonderment and expanding, I feel like, a lot of people's capacity for joy without a sorrow. Hang out, talk, commiserate, get some food, get some drinks. Everything's delicious and terrific. We'll see you tomorrow, and we'll see you soon